All right. So this week you should be reading about Reconstruction, which is an interesting piece and something that we often get wrong when talking about American history and the end of the Civil War. And so I want to clear up a few pieces. Just know that in the reading this week, there are different things that you can all take from the reading. That in the discussion this week, I kind of want you to parse out. I want you to be able to figure out um, what are the good and bad things that came out of Reconstruction, and how did all of these things work. Okay. So I'm gonna give you some points of interest, but definitely do the reading and figure that out. As I said in the introduction video, um, if the reading if the reading gets to a point where you're not necessarily understanding it, there are embedded videos that you can watch that should be able to help you as well in the textbook this week, and you should be able to figure out exactly what it is that I'm talking about. So, a couple of things. Reconstruction is this period right after the Civil War where the Union, or the country rather, I mean, they were Union, but right, we decided that instead of there being a North and a South, we're going to bring back everybody and we're going to work on trying to find a way to help people. So, to give you some context, for those of you who didn't take 111 with me, we go through the Civil War and really decimate a lot of different areas, the South being the specific area, right? Sherman goes through and burns Georgia to the ground. I mean, it's pretty bad. But you have white plantation owners, poor whites who fought for the Confederacy, who are able to kind of pick up the pieces and go back. And then you have a bunch of freed slaves who don't have anything. They've got zero. They're living in burned out churches, burned out homes, just because their masters were like, "Fine, go. We don't need you." It creates this tenuous, or this animosity, this tension between whites and blacks at the time, which we can which we're continuing to see today. Right, this hasn't really changed at all. What we are seeing is that African Americans are trying to make a go of it at that time, but they have no way to do that. They've got no money. They have not been paid for any of their things. With that, they were not sent. Uh, they were not put into areas where they could then help themselves, and so they had to build from nothing. It was as if you had come off a ship uh, before the colonies, and we're trying to make this work, and now and that's exactly what's going on. You've got all of this stuff going on, but then on top of it you've got the animosity, and so African Americans are not being able to make it work, right? You've got Congress and the Senate arguing over what it is that they can do and how they're going to be able to push some of these ideas forward, trying to find ways that they can help out. That if freedom, if that's all that we're going to do, then freedom is not really great once they get there. And so they have this idea of reconstruction and rebuilding in certain ways, right? After the death of Lincoln, though, Reconstruction falls on its face. The South looks at Reconstruction as this way of trying to integrate African Americans into their society. You have to understand that there was a caste system prior to this, and so even poor whites see themselves as above black former slaves, and so they're not about to allow them to become equals, and that causes an issue, right? And so after Reconstruction, we're going to see this idea of Jim Crow, which we're not there yet, and we'll talk about in a few weeks. But I think that it's important to see. Reconstruction, although is supposed to help African Americans and other Southern towns, what it does is create that animosity. So you get the good, which is that we're going to rebuild and we're going to help and do this. But then you have some other issues afterwards that you're going to read in the reading this week, that obviously is what brings down the demise of Reconstruction, and it's that idea of integration. It's this idea of putting everybody on equal footing, and this idea of freedom. And so take a look at it this week, and then in the discussion board this week, let's talk about the goods and the bad thing, the good and the bad things, characteristics about Reconstruction, and how we can see that it's a complex issue, right? A lot of times, especially in our political climate today, we like to say that we like to push these ideas of very black or very white, right? This very binary line of what happened politically, with families, with different towns. And what we need to see is that it's super complex, that it's not black and white, that it's not one way or the other. So I hope that you can see the gray, right? I've asked you to do that this semester. Look at the gray. Let's look at the complexity and the nuance in this. So as you're looking at it this week, let's take a look at what worked and what didn't. And then as a response to your classmates this week, you need to find an image that correlates with whatever it is that we're saying. So there's a lot of political cartoons out there that you could use. Some photographs. The photographs are going to be probably older, but let's find things, images that will work in telling that story, so that we can add some sort of complexity to this, right? That it's not just one-sided. So anyway, let's do that. I hope that this helps this week as you start to do the reading, that you can look for these complex issues, and maybe keep a list as you're doing the reading of, like, here's how Reconstruction could have helped or did help, and here are some ways that it was obviously bound to fail and why it wasn't going to work. Okay, and we'll talk more about that. If you're interested in further reading this book, The Second Founding by Eric Foner, who also wrote our textbook, is a great way to be able to look at Reconstruction after the Civil War. This book is really about Reconstruction and how Reconstruction made the Constitution, which I think is a great read. But check it out if you're interested, The Second Founding. I will see you all next week. Make sure to check out these videos so that you can be able to keep up with the reading and understand what it is that I'm looking for that week. We'll catch you later.